Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey here, once again with another video on The Flash Season 7. So in the past week's episode of The Flash, we had arguably one of the biggest cliffhangers that an episode of The Flash has provided in quite a while, if not just in general in the show. Not saying it's the biggest, but it's one of the biggest. It's a cliffhanger that caught everyone off guard and wondering, what is happening next with all this? But also, another question that comes with this is how it came to be. And of course, that cliffhanger is that of the return of the original Harrison Wells, which we'd only seen in flashbacks. This is the one that, this is the Wells that hadn't interacted with Barry or even like Caitlin and Cisco. So it will be interesting to see what his dynamic is with everyone else. But how did he return? Was it magic? Was it pixie dust? Did he get reverse Thanos and get snapped back into reality? Well, we will go over that as well as some quotes from people on the show in regards to this cliffhanger that set up some interesting things for the character going forward. But of course, throughout the video, be sure to let me know your various thoughts, opinions, other theories leading into this, or leading out of this cliffhanger, might I say. I'm always curious to hear what you guys have to say. Where do you think it's going to lead? What, role do you think this new Harrison Wells or the original Harrison Wells is going to play throughout the season? I'm always curious to hear what you have to say. So yeah, let me know down there in the comments. And of course, if you're going to enjoy the video, this cliffhanger caught you off guard and you're looking forward to where it goes, why not drop a like on it to show your support. So at the end of episode 2 of The Flash Season 7, which was otherwise entitled The Speed of Thought, we flash back to the events of many, many years ago, with the show even placing Once Upon a Time over the screen before this flashback takes place. Now we see the same events that took place where Eobard Thawne, replaces his DNA with that of Wells, and then buries the Wells drained body, in a grave, complete with red lightning. But we then skip ahead in years and see green particles start to shoot up from the grave of the original Harrison Wells, going on to bring him back to life. The OG Wells has been reborn. Now, I know there is a big debate of sorts going on around the body, still being in the grave all these years later due to the episode in season 1. It was towards the end of the season where Cisco and Joe dig up the body and bring it back to Central City to get DNA to prove that that's the body of Harrison Wells. But I'm not sure whether it's said on the show, whether they return the body to that site or do something else with it buried elsewhere. Maybe that will get explained in a later episode this season. Who knows? But they did dig him up and they brought him back to, I think, Barry's lab specifically in season 1. So I'm not too sure if they explained what they did with it after that, but it was taken from there initially. But maybe Christ has put it back there. Who knows? But what brings this Harrison Wells back? What gives this Wells a rebirth of sorts? Well, the theory and explanation that makes the most sense in my eyes, at the very least, based off the series of events that we see take place in both episodes 1 and 2, is that Nash Wells was the host for all these, multiversal particles of all the Harrison Wells in the previous multiverse before Crisis. But of course, as we saw, he sacrificed himself along with the other versions of Wells to power the fusion sphere for the artificial speed force so Barry gets speed again. But of course, in episode 2, towards the end, we see Barry destroy the fusion sphere in order to snap himself out of that weird robotic, no emotion state that he was in throughout most of the episode, which not only drains Barry of that speed that he attained from the fusion sphere or the artificial speed force, but also releases what was placed in it, which would be all those multiversal particles of Wells, also including Nash. And even more specifically, just the human form of Nash that was drained into the sphere. We know that all those other versions of Wells were drawn to Nash as he was the last Wells, in the multiverse that was left. So when that fusion sphere was taken out and all those particles were re-released, there is no host for them to attach to, a living one at least, with the only, Harrison Wells related thing left on this earth being the one buried in that shallow grave by the Reverse Flash all those years ago. Now, we know that the artificial speed force was very powerful, which was powered by those particles, so it is logical enough in the world of the Flash and superheroes like that they could rebirth a character like the original Harrison Wells. And as I alluded to earlier, this would be in present day. Lots of people were wondering whether he just came back to life, after Reverse Flash left the scene that night. But that would cause plot holes around, well, where had he, been walking around for the past 20 or so years? Was he just standing on that, on his own grave, waiting for his cue to enter the story? So yeah, it's present day when he is brought back thanks to those particles. When they're released, they go to him. But I am interested to see where this story leads. As we know, this Harrison Wells was the one who, gave the original timeline Flash his powers thanks to the particle accelerator. So maybe he can help Barry with his speed and fixing the real or natural speed force. I guess the Wellsabard or the the Harrison Wells taken over by Edward Thorne, his plans would be there. So maybe he could quickly have a look at them and come up with a way to connect Barry back to the natural speed force and bring it back to life. It's pretty logical. But we do actually have a quote from an interview with Grant Gustin, who of course plays your boy Barry Allen, which not only sort of confirms the theory that we just talked about, but also dives into some stuff that will evolve or revolve around this Wells going forward this season. So this was with Entertainment Weekly, and Grant Gustin was asked. The real Harrison Wells returns at the end of the episode, which explains how Tom Cavanagh is still part of the show after Nash and the Councillor Wells died last week. What can we expect from this version of Harrison? Well, there's kind of a twist there too, like always when it comes to Wells. It's not like necessarily the real Harrison Wells, I guess. It has more to do with the particles that made up all of the Welleses now embodies this Harrison Wells. So we're going to yet again see Tom do something slightly different than we've ever seen, and it is technically the real Harrison Wells, but with a twist. So what could this twist be? Now, you would have to think it won't be anything overly similar to what was going on with Nash, so the other Wells from previous seasons and Earths from the multiverse being able to come through. You'd have to think, but it's sort of like what Grant says there, it sort of makes it seem like it might be something like that. Maybe he has the intelligence and skills of those other Wells, but they don't come through. So it's just, that's still that original Harrison Wells, but he can use like the skills of Nash, like the adventure skills, can use whatever Harry was doing, whatever HR, whatever Sherlock, various things like that. But he's still just the one Wells, if that makes sense. But another one, if I was to make a guess at this point in the season before we're even properly introduced to this character in an episode, it might have to do with one of the villains for later in the season, maybe. Like maybe there is a correlation between himself and one or more of them. It's hard to tell because we literally got the cliffhanger, that quote from Grant, and that's it. And it doesn't really tell us much. So I am wondering whether we will see him next or this coming week in episode 3, which is like the finale for the Mirror Master story, or if they'll leave him for episode 4, 5, 6, and various episodes like that. Maybe we might get another cliffhanger. Maybe right at the end of the season, or right at the end of next episode, might I say, he walks into Star Labs. Maybe that's what happens there, and that's the cliffhanger, for Barry and the team to deal with. But, you can always let me know what you think it could be, even though there isn't much to go over in regards to it, but I am curious to see what theories you could have. But as I did say, we do have like the quote-unquote finale for the Mirror Master story, which was supposed to be at the end of season 6. Of course, COVID went, that's not happening. But TB Line did an interview with Grant Gustin where he previewed the finale and how it is different, but also still similar to the scope of previous finales. I will leave the full interview linked in the description down below, as well as the Entertainment Weekly interview, but I'm just going to go over 2 different questions here because they're the ones that relate to the finale. Eric Wallace told me that he had to do a bit of a different finale to this arc because of COVID and everything. Did it feel different at all for you filming it? It's been interesting this year because you're very aware of how they are trying to limit physical contact, which makes emotional scenes very tough. There's not a lot of hugging this season. There's been no kissing, at least on my end. So it's been weird in exploring those emotional aspects of the show and limiting the number of people in scenes. So yeah, you're aware that we have to adjust the filming and everything, but it doesn't feel incredibly different to me than what we've been doing for the last 6 years. So I think this was said by Candice Patton, who of course plays Iris. I think she said that like her and Grant or Barry share scenes, but there's no overly romantic stuff, and I think that's the same for a lot of things going forward. I think with this, I think Riverdale, because it's a show it's pretty much a shipping show. You have to gargle mouthwash before and after you do a kissing scene. Like literally, they'll gargle mouthwash, do the kissing scene, and then you have to gargle mouthwash straight after. So even if you're in a relationship, it'd probably be very annoying to be constantly gargling mouthwash. But they also say the final showdown will still be big and satisfying. And Grant says, yes, it's still going to be satisfying. There's a big city action scene and they were able to create scope without piling a bunch of actors on top of each other. Now, my trailer breakdown for this, quote unquote finale episode, I did say that it does look like they're going to reuse some footage from previous finales with those big city action scenes, a lot of extras running around, explosions and stuff, and then mix it in with newly shot stuff with limited extras. So if you do watch the finale or, episode, I keep calling it the finale because it technically is, but if you watch episode 3 or this week's episode or this week's upcoming episode and you see some scenes that look familiar, it's because they are. It's because they're from previous finales or previous episodes where they had big scenes going on because they couldn't do it during, because of COVID and stuff like that. But, we don't really care too much about extras as long as the story works and it ends in a somewhat satisfying way, and Grant's saying it does. And of course, we're all looking forward to seeing how they set up the next arc or graphic novel for this show. Because if the original Harrison Wells is just the first little piece in it, then I can't wait to see what else they add. But thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, it'd be awesome if you could drop a like on it to show support. Let me know in the comments section down below your various opinions on this. General theories around the Harrison Wells thing. Do you think, what Grant's saying there lines up with the theory that we talked about earlier in the video, the particles and all the wells going into this wells and stuff like that? Let me know your various thoughts down there. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. And yeah, I'll catch you guys later. Goodbye.